Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I'm a psychology major, and this is my capstone project. And I accidentally coordinated my color scheme with my slides. I did my capstone project on random acts of kindness. So out of curiosity, before we begin, how many people here have participated in a random act of kindness? Oh, wow, that's a great amount. So you guys might vibe with this information. So my question is whether participating in random acts of kindness is a useful tool to uplift the mood and help us feel more socially connected. And I chose this topic because years ago, my friend, we were at work together and she wrote on a piece of paper, "You are loved," really big. And then she folded it into a paper airplane and soared it out the window. And we ran to the window to watch where it went, and it kind of went down and it landed on somebody's windshield that was parked at the building. So when we heard them come out, we ran to the window and watched, and this man found it and just burst out into this like joyous laughter. And that kind of stuck with me through all the years, and I always was just interested in it. And then through college, doing different presentations or papers on depression and like social connection and stuff like that, I found that there was like alarming rates of depression. And even recently, I looked at a study by Gallup. It was like a global survey, and they said 1 in 6 adults are experiencing depression. And social connection is paramount to our well-being. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the American Surgeon General. His name is Vivek Murthy, but he did a report on an epidemic of loneliness. And through that report, I learned that loneliness, satisfaction with life, and general well-being is tied to social connectedness because we are social creatures and we need each other. So why are people feeling less connected these days when we're more and more connected than ever? Because the internet and social media, we're connected, but we're not in person. We're not doing one-on-one type stuff. We're working more remotely. We're texting more than talking. And the Surgeon General also commented that there's less community, less people are going to church. I think back in 2003, it was like over 60% of Americans were going to church regularly or just involved in a community type situation. And now it's dipped down to about 46%. And kids are hanging out 70% less than they used, which is a huge, huge drop. So with all that being said, through the research, I found that social connection has been tested as one of the best ways, or that random acts of kindness has been tested as one of the best ways to raise feelings of social connection. Therefore, I wanted to study it further. And I'm not going to read all my literature review on past research, but basically, the research confirmed that loneliness and social isolation contributes to physical and mental health issues, and that social connection is connected to depression. The research also shows that out of several different tasks, random act of kindness showed the best results in raising our levels of social connection. And giving groups out of a giving and receiving group received more positive affect, satisfaction with life, and longevity than the receiving groups. And then we found out that as long as someone's not overwhelmed, helping others leads to better health. And the more we recall, track, or log our acts of kindness, the happier we are. And one study found that there is actually no difference in the benefit of doing a random act of kindness or just recalling a random act of kindness. So all of you can just recall what you did already. And lastly, researchers Passamore and Odes, they suggested to remember the acronym CAKE, which is doing consistent acts of kindness and empathy. And they provided various ways to do that, like offer someone a compliment or write them a handwritten note or take them flowers. So With this supporting information, I decided to create a mixed method in-person quasi-experiment. And this is where we compare the pre-task and the post-task levels with mood and connectedness in both an experimental group and a control group. And some of you were in that group. So my first hypothesis is the experimental group, which is the random act of kindness group, will experience an increase in social connectedness and positive affect. And my second hypothesis is that the experimental group will experience a greater sense of social connection and positive affect than the control group. And the control group just did puzzles. So this is still an ongoing study. I only have about 23 participants so far, so I feel your pain with the participants. About half was recruited for the experimental group and half was the control group. And for the materials and measures, I used for the survey part a PANAS mood scale. It just asks you to rate your mood on a scale, and then there's a social connectedness scale. And then for materials, we either gave the subjects fresh carnations or we had them fill out a puzzle. So pretty much the same thing with the procedure. They came into the lab, they filled out the scales on a survey, and then we paused the survey and then went ahead and they completed the task. And then both groups came back and finished the survey to like mark any changes in their mood or social connectedness. So we don't have any final results yet, so stay tuned for that. But afterwards, a lot of people were willing to talk about it, and they, shared a lot of really cool information and their experiences. So there's a couple limitations. Obviously, we have a small number of participants so far, and it was limited to University of Baltimore students, staff, and a couple other people. So it's not really generalizable so far as like the population. And in-person studies can be less convenient, so it provides a limitation. So we've learned so far that social connectedness is important for our sense of well-being, and we can do acts of kindness to boost our mood and sense of connection. So I urge everyone to get out there, get inspired, and create a ripple effect.
I was wondering, since you mentioned earlier that the act of just recalling the good action that you did kind of gives the similar effect, right? From actually doing it itself. If in person is a problem, could you try doing it as a survey then, to have a scale beforehand and then have them do some random stuff to make them forget about the scale, and then ask them, can you recall a time when you did blah, 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 and then perhaps do it again if participants is a problem.
Shit. Now.
Yeah.
I don't want her to get like me, okay? I'm trying to help people. I already went down this path and tried to help
No, I think that would be an effective way to test it. I've thought of like a million different ways to do it since I started, but that would also be something to look into for further research.
It was an impactful in-person studies. Don't sacrifice the impactful in-person studies.
What made you choose the crossword puzzles for the control?
Because it was I'm sorry. It was because it was like a solitary task that someone could just sit down and do and not interact with other people. So the whole idea was, social connection.
Right. Thank you very much. Woo!